today we are going to talk about my story, The House Held by Ivy, inspired by the song Ivy by Taylor Swift. So,
It's a very good story. I'm very excited to talk about it. So, this is the first story that I have ever read that Kayla has done. And let me tell you, I was so impressed by this. If you were coming here first before going to her video, please stop watching this. Go over and watch hers. And if you remember, come back to mine because that story is worth listening to. Um, Particularly your use of description. I really think that your use of description is like perfect.
oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Like, I just love like your wording. Like, it's just like, where was it? Like guilt snaking through her.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I guess that's not a description part, but
But
it's like with her usual dread, she enters through the dark oak door. Like, I don't know. Like, I just really like the entire time I was reading it, I have a really hard time seeing images in my head, but like as best as I could, your descriptions really nailed it.
good. I'm glad. And I'm also glad because that was something that I added in probably on the last draft of it. And
No,
I didn't know if it was a good idea or not, but I went with it. So,
yeah,
hey.
no, just like from the very beginning, like how you like are talking about Mrs. Sumner, like how she's like going and like you switch the perspective back to Theodora, and then like kind of how you just end up like I really was impressed with how you ended up like blending their stories together. Like you just like start this off and then you like have them at the market and you like have them like introduce Mrs. Sumner again. And I really liked that. I thought that was really cool. And speaking of her, you had me questioning the entire time who she is.
That was supposed to be okay. So in my head, she is just kind of this malevolent force that just enters towns and stays there for a while and just really kind of waits until there's a very weak spot for somebody and just really digs into there. And when she's done with whatever she wants to do, whoever she's messing with, she moves on to the next town. But I kind of just wanted to leave it open for interpretation because I purposely didn't go into what she was. There's no exact, I guess, definition or uh lore of what she is in terms of what exists already. She's just this thing that's there and basically just there to cause chaos.
Nice.
And she really just integrates herself in these towns and makes it seem like she, belongs there. And then she finds the weak spots of the people who live there and she kind of just digs a little deeper in and then leaves.
Gotcha. So I think one thing that people are going to question a lot, I was Googling just Ivy by Taylor Swift on Twitter/X. And there are a lot of people who say that this song is about lesbians. Do you want to talk about why this story is not about lesbians? To go ahead and get that out of the way.
Uh, so I can't speak on what the song was written about, but I can say that it doesn't surprise me that people have said that because of a lot of other things I've seen on the internet. So,
Gotcha. Yeah, the other thing was a tie-in with how they believe that Emily Dickinson would have really liked the song. Um, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm going to really shame myself here and say that I do not read a lot of classic. Like I have a very difficult time getting into the languages and I feel like I'm kind of reading a foreign language sometimes, so I'm really bad in saying I do not know a lot of the classics. I know the names, but I'm just going to go ahead and say, yeah, sure.
Oh, okay. Well, let's talk about your motivation instead, because the whole project idea, taking Taylor Swift songs and turning them horror, was your idea initially. Um, was there something about Ivy that really grabbed you first, or why was this your first story?
Particularly one line, and the old widow goes to the grave every day, but I just sit here and wait, grieving for the living. One, it's like one of my favorite lines in that song. And I just thought it would make a very good horror story. So, like, why not? And that's
Yeah,
kind of, there wasn't, like, I had this whole picture in my head, not so much as a whole entire story, but little visuals of while I was listening to the song, things that were happening to this couple. And then when it came in my head, like, oh, a horror story, I was like, oh, well, there's obviously the old widow. And just,
yeah,
I don't know, my brain just kind of sometimes takes little bits and runs with it. And sometimes I don't know exactly how it forms, it just does.
yeah, that's fair. I'm a big fan of the old people somehow becoming like the malevolent people in a story. So
Oh,
kudos.
thank you. Oh, reminded me of you saying that. I was going to ask if you ever seen a movie, but never mind. I'll ask that later.
Um, I also appreciated, like, I wrote down like little questions while I was reading it, like who is Mrs. Sumner? And then, like, why does she stay with her husband? And, like, you touched on it a little bit, but I guess, do you want to elaborate on that a little bit for, like, why she felt so stuck in the relationship?
Yes. Actually, my ending was initially different, but I had a couple people tell me that even though they really liked elements of my original ending, they thought that I already had an ending, which is the one that is up. And they felt like it was basically like ending and being coming back and being like, oh, by the way. So I don't know if this would make it, this might not make it any more clear, but at the end, it was Mrs. Sumner, like Hugh, Sebastian, Theodora, they're all gone. Mrs. Sumner disappears and is never to be seen again. And then it says that her husband's grave, all the writing that was on there is gone and it's only blanketed in ivy. So it was supposed to kind of say that basically the husband was a figment. He wasn't real. He was part of her facade to fit into this town and live in this town.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering about that too. So, like, the ivy ended up, like, coming from his eyes and, like, the end scenes, and he was, like, didn't really seem like himself. Was that supposed to kind of,
Oh,
like, be a cue towards that?
sorry, you meant Theodora's husband. I thought we were talking about Mrs. Sumner, and I thought you were talking about Mrs.
Oh, no.
Sumner's husband. Oh, well, the Ivy is supposed to be, well, one, she's in this relationship, and I I didn't exactly specify the time period of which it's in because obviously they're wealthy, but they only have one car.
Right.
There's a house phone, and like I don't have a specific time period. I just want it to be like whatever somebody thinks it is. I've had someone tell me they thought it was modern day. I've had someone else tell me that they thought it was like way back when. Uh, but the reason she stays with her husband is because, well, initially she was very proud of him for being successful. And she was trying to let him ride the high of his successes and thinking that he's just getting used to having money in this new life. And she
Right.
didn't realize that him trying to impress people would be an ongoing thing. And by the time she realized that, she felt trapped. And I don't go a whole lot into her family, but I did mention that her parents would shame her. So in her family, divorce isn't really a big option. And as far as the ivy coming out of his eyes, the ivy is, it's really not so much anything to do with Mrs. Sumner, so much as, like I said, she pinpoints people's weaknesses and really drills into them. And the ivy that's on her house, she's in this miserable marriage. She's not happy, but the one thing she does like is her house, and she really loves how it looks and the ivy, and she enjoys looking at it. And that's why she paints it. And that's the one thing she enjoys. And so Mrs. Sumner just kind of uses that, the one thing that she enjoys, and turns it into something terrible.
I like that.
Thank
Yeah, that that
you.
makes a
Like,
lot of
thanks.
thanks. No, that makes a lot of sense. So I thought you were initially trying to say that like Theodora's husband wasn't real at all the entire time, that he was
No,
also a facade.
no,
And
I
Sebastian, the
misunderstood
entire thing was a facade.
everything. And then she woke up and it was all a dream.
It's like, yeah, like at some point I thought Mrs. Sumner was just like a ghost, like it was just like a manifestation of like her anxiety of being found out.
Yeah, which would have been good. I didn't even think of that.
Uh, because that's like a very good indicator that I'm interested in the story if I'm trying to come up with theories for like why I think that she's seeing this like old lady just like staring at her.
Yeah,
Okay.
I sometimes don't know because I've realized I am a big fan of endings that don't necessarily answer all the questions.
I am too.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people hate that. And so I wasn't sure how, you or some other people that I let read it were going to, what they were going to think, because I know I happen to be that person who loves that thing that a lot of people hate, and I'm sitting there like sad.
No, I the more ambiguous like the ending and like the more it's just like, hey, my audience is smart and they are allowed to formulate their own opinions, the more I like it.
Yeah.
I have a bigger question to ask you, but first I'm just going to start off with the wine glasses.
Okay.
Okay. So you obviously love the line of "and drink my
Drink my husband's
husband's
wine.
wine."
Yep. I just feel like it's a big, like, I'm miserable with you. Fuck you. I'm gonna
Yeah.
take this thing that you love and I'm going to share it with somebody else.
Yes. And it also kind of seemed like he didn't really like he wanted it because it was one of the finer things, but he didn't actually care about it.
Basically. Yeah. I mean, I guess I wouldn't say it's not that he doesn't enjoy it at all, but he definitely has this. Like, I know I didn't go into a lot of the backstory, but in my head, he was someone who really had to work to get to where he was. And he had to work very hard. And when he finally did, he wanted to keep that status and wanted to appear like he fit in. And he let it kind of change him and sway him into certain things and certain lifestyles. And that was basically what that was to represent, was he wanted the finest of everything because he never really had that. And in the process of wanting the finest of everything, the thing that made him, one of the reasons he worked so hard to be successful, being, the woman that he loves, is kind of that thing that's been taken away from him. So he's kind of just trying to surround himself with all these luxurious things while the one thing that kind of motivated him is the thing that he's losing. And that was kind of the idea of it.
Yeah. You hinted that he knew. Did he know?
I, that was another thing. I didn't know, because I know I said that he was supposed to be in London, and I don't necessarily specify where this story takes place. You just know it's cold and snowy.
Right.
Um, by the time he is at the house at the end, that, I mean, it's him, but it's not. Like, it's his
Okay.
body and everything. At that point, like, he's doing those things, but he's not necessarily the one controlling them.
Kind of
Is it?
like Jack Torrance in The Shining.
See, my mom did tell me when she read it, it reminded her of The Shining, and I've only seen that movie once and I don't remember much about it, but
I
so,
don't know if they go into that in the movie, that it's not really him, it's the hotel.
oh, yeah, but
Spoilers.
it is, like I said, it's him, and in my head, he's aware that things are going on, but he can't really control what's happening. It's Mrs. Sumner is basically the one who led him there and is taking all these emotions and heightening them, and he's not really in control of them at that point or
So
what he's doing.
is she the one who put the wines in the bedroom and made it look like they were drunk?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Because that was like the one line she wouldn't cross, and then she's like, I know that that's the one line that you won't cross, and I'm going to make it look like you crossed that line anyways.
yeah, yeah, I guess I Like I said, I like to leave a lot of things up for people's imagination, so that's why I didn't really go too much into it, but that's what was happening in my head.
Yeah. Also, before I ask the bigger question, I just wanted to ask, so for like the first time that the phone rings, you're like have it just like ringing like a sound effect, but then like the second time you still have like your like little voice and you're just like ring. Did you leave that in
Because
on purpose?
I was putting it in there in case I had to, because my computer was being weird and it wasn't telling me the YouTube st like audio studio thing, whatever. Like if it was something that I had to give credit to or whatever, and if I couldn't find it, I wanted to make sure I could just go in and take it out and just have my voice and not have to go search for my voice.
Yeah.
So that's what that was. It was like, I need to have this just in case.
No, that's fair.
Yeah.
You did a very good job narrating too. I think I told you that, but you did a very good job. Because I know
Thanks.
you were like a little bit nervous about that, but I think you pulled it off very well.
Thank you. I just know I start talking like this.
It's okay. So long as you consistently talk like that.
Yeah, I do it with my hands like this too.
Okay. So I'm kind of completely diverting this and asking you, so as an artist and as somebody who wants to make it with your writing, is there any part of you that you were kind of pouring into Theodora?
Yep. And I'm sure you know what I'm about to say. I don't know about you, but I think most people who want to do something that is incredibly difficult to do, not in terms of just going and sitting down and writing something, which can be very difficult, but I mean, in terms of actually making it. Uh,
Right.
there are a lot of times where I know I've kind of just felt my entire life I've been told I was good at something, and now I can't even get agents to request past 10 pages of my manuscript. I'm like, have this whole time, have I just thought I was very good at something and maybe I'm just mediocre, or like I'm good, but now I'm like in this pool of people who are also good and maybe I'm just like not good enough, or I'm good, but I'm not unique. And in order to really sell things, a lot of times, I don't want to say, no, that's not necessarily true, but a lot of times you can be good, but if you're not unique, it's not going to set you apart. And that was something that I very much so struggled with, which is why I put that in there, a bit of real life
Yeah.
creeping in.
Luckily, you have a very supportive husband as opposed to Theodora.
Plot twist, the entire story is about me and Andrew.
Yeah. Oh, oops. I
Whoops.
spoke too soon. Your
No,
relationship just looks so good on the surface.
I know we're very good at acting.
Wow.
I'm just kidding. We're all good. Love you, Andrew.
But yeah, that was about all I had as far as notes are concerned for this. Um, job well done once again. Cool.
So what song are you basing your or inspired you for your next story?
So the next one is going to be Betty. And I'm really excited about it because I am taking it in a genre direction that I have never written before, but I absolutely love. And it's going to be kind of more of this playful, like I'm really going off of like the playful, like teenager drama effect.
I think that'll be fun.
And uh I'm just having a lot of fun like experimenting with the genre, and I'm just really hoping that I pull it off well because I've it's been a very long time since I've written YA, and I've never written this type of YA before.
I mean, the good news is you tend to vibe with horror very well, so I think that just making them teenagers won't be as much of a stretch from just being like, let me write something like Perks of Being a Wallflower, which I love.
Like I am so it with teens, and
Wait,
I read all the good YA books like
wait,
Crave.
with the kids. And now,
Anyways,
anyway, yeah.
Betty.
So, have you finished it or is it still in the process of being written?
Like, it's still in the process of being written. It's like the full story's in my head.
Mhm.
It's a pretty simple narrative. Like, I have that all configured. It's just a matter of like going through it and adding like the extra details because not that we are going to continue to have 40-minute stories, but it does make me a little bit more inspired to push myself a little bit harder because I do have some time to do it. Because like all the stories I did for 31 Tales, some of them I did have to end up writing the day of. And
Mhm.
so it's like, hey, I have time to actually write a story. Like, what is this?
And you can, I don't know how you do it, but I know you can sit down and write something in a day, and I just can't do that.
Yeah, how long did it take you to write Ivy? Or The House
Um,
Held by Ivy?
one moment. I have it here in my notebook. Let's see. I started it on October 22nd and finished the first draft on November 11th. So like
Nice.
2 weeks, I think.
Okay, that's not
Mm.
bad.
Oh, there is one question I had for you. Uh,
Yes.
when you are taking these songs that and right turning them into horror stories, I know they are inspired by horror stories. Are you go do you like to stick to a lot of the plot of the song, or do you like to just take certain lines or a certain vibe that you're getting from the song and just go with that?
I think it's going to depend. For Betty, I am very much sticking with the narrative structure and
Gotcha.
just kind of like adding twists into it.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, I'm very excited to be working on this with you. If you don't know, we will be posting these on the 13th of every month. We obviously wanted to start on December 13th. And this has been a conversation about Ivy by Taylor Swift.
Yes.
And if you liked Kayla's content, please watch her other videos, and she is just adorable in every single video. Bye. We'll catch
Bye.
you at the next one.